With the U.S. government shutdown now in its 10th day, we are beginning to see the effects in a number of places, from the suspended release of key economic data to problems keeping U.S. national parks open. While many parks do remain open, some visitor centers and bathrooms, that's crucial, are not. And having fewer park rangers on duty is leading to concerns over safety as well as vandalism. The National Parks Conservation Association, the main advocacy group for the parks, says they should be closed while the shutdown continues. Joining me now is John Garder, the NPCA Sr. Director of Budget and Appropriations. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So, Arizona is saying it cannot fund its parks. New York is keeping some open, for instance, Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, Colorado, and Utah. They're saying the national parks will remain open. How are some states keeping the open and others not? Is it just a matter of choice at this point, or are they finding state funds?
They are using state funds. It's a chaotic situation that makes it very hard for visitors to know what exactly is going to be open, and some parks are partially open. And in some cases, as you note, the states are stepping in. That's a lot of money for the states. They're using their money that they're essentially giving to the Park Service to partially operate their parks. But that's not a sustainable situation. There are nonprofits stepping in as well, but you can only do that for so long.
And your group's position is that as much as folks don't want the gates closed, that it makes sense to keep them closed if you don't have the proper staff and facilities available.
That's right, and that was a very tough decision to come to, but we came to it during the last shutdown under the first Trump administration because we saw the danger that was happening to visitors, the threat to their safety, and the threat to these amazing historic and natural resources that people come to see. We saw Joshua trees being cut down. We saw off-road vehicles driving in very sensitive desert habitat. We saw spray paint and other vandalism to historic sites. You know, when you leave parks partially open with skeleton crews of staff, there's no way you can protect resources the way you're supposed to or the safety of visitors.
Yeah. Such a shame that people take advantage that way. This does go beyond the shutdown because since the Trump administration took office for the second term, the NPCA has lost 24% of its permanent staff. So you're seeing effects that go beyond and cuts that go beyond the result of the shutdown.
That's right. Yeah, this is a really, really terrible situation. So the Park Service was already losing staff prior to this January. They had 15 years ago close to 20,000 staff. Because of insufficient funding from Congress, they were whittled down to more like a little over 16,000 by the time the administration came in. Now, because they've been pressuring people to leave, some firings, pressuring people to resign early, they're down to just a little over 12,000 people to operate the entire National Park Service. All of the national parks, it's a really slim number of people, more than 25% at this point. And what that means is that they are unable to care for those resources I've been talking about the way that they need to be, curbing invasive species, you know, studying that iconic wildlife that people come to see at the larger parks. All of that work is, much of that work is not getting done, especially as they're trying to create this facade by front-loading visitor services so that visitors don't feel the pain. But the problem is, in the long run, visitors are going to feel the pain when they see that our parks aren't being taken care of. And I'd like to add that this morning, finally, the administration has been threatening for a week that they are going to do mass firings during of federal workers during the shutdown. And now this morning, they announced that they are going to do that. There are indications that that will include the Park Service. They've already been cut so much. And so what does this mean for them if they're going to lose even more employees and when our parks finally do reopen, because they're being operated with so few people right now? It's going to be a real mess. And this is threatening the institutional knowledge of all these professionals and will likely mean decades of recovery for the Park Service.
I get it. Yeah, and as we noted earlier, the permanent firings are not necessary. This is, in effect, taking that opportunity to continue the work of DOGE earlier. There are, John, before we go, folks in Washington who fear that this shutdown can go on for some time, perhaps even weeks. What would that mean for the parks, the national parks?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. For one thing, we haven't talked about the economic impact, right? Each day in October, they're losing $1 million in fee revenue. Parks are already underfunded, so that has a huge impact for them. $80 million in visitor spending each day in October that's at risk. And those surrounding communities that depend on all that visitor spending,
Mhm.
$56 billion annual economic activity from our parks. So certainly that would worry a lot of gateway businesses. And of course, a lot of people who want to go visit our parks. And then also it means when you've got those skeleton crews out there, when they're not there to care for our parks, but people are still being invited in some cases, that's a very dangerous situation. And we're seeing that play out today in Yosemite. People have been out there climbing without permits, going up the iconic half dome, cutting each other in line. It creates a very, very dangerous
Yeah,
situation. People are flying drones, which is terrible for wildlife. You could call it the Wild West, and we're afraid that it's going to become more and more like that.
yeah. Let's hope not. They're a great resource. John Gardner, thanks so much for joining.